Welcome to Wildcat Science with Mrs. Haugo. This is biology, and today we are starting our evolution unit. We are now going to start our evolution notes, so please either open up the appropriate Google Doc or start a new page in your science biology binder. So when we are talking about evolution, a great place to start is at a scientific theory. This is one of the most misunderstood things in science, so hopefully by the end of this video you will be smarter than most adults. Okay, so please write this down. In science, a theory is an overarching explanation used to describe some aspect of the natural world that is supported by overwhelming evidence. So let's break this apart a little bit. So overarching means that it explains quite a few things, and it always is an explanation. So a theory isn't a guess, it's not a hypothesis, it's not a hunch. Those are all things that it is used to describe in everyday life, but not in science. A scientific theory is much different than saying, I have a theory or I believe this. So it's used to describe some aspect of the natural world, and it is supported by overwhelming evidence. So it's not a prediction, it's something that has a lot of evidence to back it up. Another thing we're going to talk about is the difference between laws and theories. So a theory isn't just, it's not that it's not good enough to be a law yet. They're totally different things. A law uses mathematics to state something that happens in nature, whereas a theory explains how all these things fit together in nature. So let's delve a little bit deeper. So scientific theories are well established, highly reliable, and based on loads of evidence. In short, theories explain lots of facts. So let's look at some, and please do write these down. Some scientific theories include the cell theory. It says that all living things are made up of cells. So the cell theory is not somebody's prediction that all living things are made up of cells. It is a statement that explains a lot of evidence, and there is a lot of evidence to back up this theory. Another theory is the heliocentric theory, and that says that the Earth revolves around the sun. In some people's minds, theories tend to be controversial, but not necessarily. Like the heliocentric theory, not very controversial that the Earth revolves around the sun as opposed to the other way around. So this isn't a law of nature. It is not a mathematical explanation of the sun and the Earth. It is a statement that explains lots of evidence, including sunrises and astronomical charts and stuff like that. So let's look at another theory, the theory of relativity. So you don't need to write down the whole theory of relativity, but I'll read it to you. Measurements of various quantities are relative to the velocities of observers. Space and time should be considered together and in relation to each other, and the speed of light is nonetheless invariant and the same for all observers. So the theory of relativity is that light is a constant in the entire universe, and that space-time is relative. So that's something that kind of is crazy for our brains to understand, that time is relative and space is relative. And you can kind of put these two things together that make up the fabric of the universe, of the cosmos, and we call them space-time. Okay, another highly controversial theory is the atomic theory that says that matter is composed of discrete units called atoms. And another one, the germ theory, says that diseases are caused by microorganisms like bacteria and viruses. So again, all of these theories are not hunches or predictions. They are explanations of things that are seen in nature that are backed up by a lot of facts. So they explain what is going on in nature. So please write this down. Theories are not guesses. Also, something that is often confusing for people is a person does not believe in a theory. Saying that you believe in a theory, that terminology just doesn't really make sense. So a person does not believe in theories. You either agree with the explanation based on the evidence, or you disagree with the explanation based on evidence. So it is objective, not subjective. Theories are not something you believe in or don't believe in. They either, again, agree with the explanation, looking at the evidence, or disagree with the explanation, looking at the evidence. Okay, theory versus law is something that people often get very confused. So to clarify, and please write this down, a theory is not a law in waiting. A law is not just a theory that everyone agrees with. These are two totally different things, and they're used in different circumstances, and one's not better than the other, they're just different. So, a law states what nature does under certain conditions, and a theory explains how nature works. So again, we see this word explains, and that is something that you'll want to keep in mind. Theories always explain how nature works. A law is often a mathematical statement, often using an equation. So please write this example down. The law of gravity is F equals G m1 times m2 over r squared. So the force of gravity is equal to a universal constant times the mass of one body times the mass of another body divided by the radius of the distance between them squared. So that is the law of gravity. This law doesn't really explain gravity. It states what happens when you have two bodies with certain masses, maybe like the Earth and you, and the distance between them. It states the force of gravity on those two objects. So you do exert gravity on the Earth, it's just so big it doesn't matter. Whereas, let's compare a theory with a hypothesis. And again, a theory and a hypothesis are very different things. So a hypothesis, or more than one hypotheses, are testable statements that are either supported or not supported by observational evidence. And a theory often takes into account a lot of hypotheses that have been shown to be true and a lot of evidence, and it explains something. So you don't need to write this down, but please do pay attention. Hypotheses are proposed explanations for a narrow set of phenomenon, whereas a theory is an overarching explanation that is well supported by overwhelming evidence, and it is well established, highly reliable, and based on loads or a lot of evidence. So let's look at an example of a hypothesis. If a person gets at least 6 hours of sleep, they will, on average, score higher on the biology final than students who got less than 6 hours of sleep the night before. So this statement is a hypothesis. It's not a theory. It is a predictable statement where we can test it, and it's a fairly narrow range. We are talking about, let's say, the students in the biology class and their score on a test. So it doesn't explain a natural phenomenon, and it doesn't have loads of evidence to back it up. This would just be one study. Okay, I think we're going to stop there for today, and then in part 2 we're going to talk about the process of evolution and how that works. See you then. Bye.